good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to What's Your Take. My name is Monisola Abosede, and I'll be taking you through the major stories that made the headlines yesterday and today. Joining me to bring you these stories today is our newscaster, Iyetunde Afolabi. Good morning, Iyetunde. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Monisola. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm very well also. Thanks to Davido, thanks to the victory of Davido's uncle, Governor Akeredolu, who has just been reaffirmed as the winner of the Osun State election. Davido is thinking of taking the Timeless concert to Osun State. I mean, this is huge. The Timeless concert, Davido and other artists performing in Osun State. This is great development, looking at the economy side of having a concert as big as the Timeless concert in Osun State. We don't really know if this is going to happen or not, but this is huge. What do you think, Iyetunde?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for Osun State to be in the limelight. It's a great opportunity for Osun's economy to improve in terms of people now coming to Osun. It's now a tourist attraction. People are going to the hotels, spending their money there. I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity, and I do hope that Davido goes ahead, to take the concert to Osun State. Well, having dispatched with the lighter items on our agenda, it is time to delve into the substance of today's program. And for that, I will hand over to Iyetunde, our newscaster, to give us the headlines of the major stories that we will be looking at today. Over to you, Iyetunde.
Thank you, Monisola. Hello, and welcome to the news updates on What's Your Take. First, the headlines. 1. Buhari seeks Senate approval of 800 million naira loan request from World Bank. 2. President-elect Tinubu jets out of the country to Europe to meet with foreign investors during visit. Buhari to stay additional 1 week in London on dentist request. 3. Skewed arrangement on APC proposed zoning formula for NASS leadership positions will reinforce injustice, Akeredolu says. 4. Herdsmen storm Benue communities, kill 3. Injure many. Now, the details. President Buhari on Wednesday sought Senate approval for an $800 million loan to finance the National Social Safety Network program. The request was contained in a letter read by the President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, to lawmakers on the floor of the Senate. The President wrote in part, "Please note that the Federal Executive Council approved an additional loan facility to the tune of $800 million to be secured from the World Bank for the National Social Safety Net program. The Senate may wish to note that the program is intended to expand coverage of shock-responsive safety net support among the poor and vulnerable Nigerians. This will assist them in coping with the costs of meeting basic needs." The President-elect Tinubu on Wednesday left Nigeria for Europe. This is coming 2 weeks after he returned to the country from a trip to London, Saudi Arabia, and Paris. In a statement signed by his media aide, Tunde Rahman, Tinubu will use this opportunity of the trip to fine-tune the transition plans and programs and his policy options with some of his key aides without unnecessary pressures and distractions. In an unrelated development, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, announced in a statement on Tuesday that President Muhammadu Buhari has added an additional week to his stay in London over an appointment with his dentist. The President traveled to United Kingdom last week for the coronation of King Charles III. He was originally expected back in the country this week. Governor Akeredolu of Ondo State on Wednesday faulted the zoning arrangements for the 10th National Assembly proposed by his party, the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, describing it as a skewed arrangement that reinforces injustice. And lastly, suspected armed herdsmen have again invaded 2 communities in the Guma local government area of Benue State, killing 3 persons and injuring many others in separate attacks. The latest attack came less than 72 hours after a catechist, his wife, and 5 others were reportedly killed by the herders in 3 separate attacks on Governor Samo Ortom's village and other communities in the same Guma local government area. And those are the headline news story we'll be looking at today. Over to you, Monisola.
Thank you very much, Iyetunde. We shall now go on a short break, and when we return, we'll be joined in the studio by our guest analyst, who is not a guest, by the way, and together we're going to be discussing the major stories that we have for today. We will be right back.
the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the Go-To app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other People Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
Welcome back. Joining me to take a look at the big stories for today is Mr. Dayo Akeredolu. Welcome to today's show, Mr. Dayo.
Very good morning to you, Monisola. Good morning, Iyetunde. Good morning to all our viewers. Well, for this edition, I'm sitting in a different seat today. Usually you are in this seat and I'm in that seat, but we've swapped today to give our viewers a little bit of a different feel to how the show will run. Happy to be here today.
Thank you. The president, moving on to major stories for today, the president on Wednesday saw the Senate approval for a $800 million loan from the World Bank to finance the National Social Safety Network program. In the letter addressed to the Senate, the president said that the FG intends to transfer the sum of 5,000 naira per month to 10.2 million poor and low-income households for a period of 6 months from this loan. Now, Mr. Dayo, how feasible do you think this is in terms of transparency and credibility?
Well, I think that there are some issues. This loan thing has some problems, and the first thing you ask yourself, and it relates to your question about transparency and credibility. The first thing I ask myself is, this outgoing administration has said that they are leaving subsidy removal for the next government. They've said they're not doing it before May 29. The next government will handle it. So if they're not doing it in their own tenure, why are they borrowing money to cushion the effects of a subsidy removal that they are leaving to the next administration? Why don't they leave it to the next administration to do the money aspect as well? Yes, granted, everybody accepts that there must be some sort of cushioning measure for the public in terms of subsidy removal so that the shocks don't shake people, especially vulnerable, poor, and low-income people. So it's accepted that the government must do something for the people. But my question is, why is it the outgoing administration with 18 days to go, why are they putting their head inside a matter that they have on their own relinquished to the incoming administration? The next thing is this $800 million loan. Even the budget office yesterday, the head of the budget office, Ben Akabweze, yesterday said that by the time they add this $800 million loan to what is already owed, that the country's finances are stretched to the limit. Our loan portfolio is one such that to even service that debt, that additional debt, is going to be very cumbersome for any administration. The other consideration also is that for something like palliatives, you shouldn't borrow money. You borrow money for things that are productive. You don't borrow for consumption. You borrow for things that will yield the principal plus enough to pay the interest. But if you are borrowing money to dash people or to make things easy for people, where do you get that money back plus the interest? Because that 5,000 is going for consumption. People are going to use it to eat. And once it's eaten, it's gone in their belly, they go to toilet, pull it out, it's gone. It's not regenerating. not even the principal, let alone the interest. So you don't borrow for consumption. You borrow to build factories. You borrow to build infrastructure, things that will generate the money back plus extra to pay the cost of funds. Then, of course, there's the issue of the $800 million. They say they're going to use it to give 10.5 million vulnerable Nigerian poor people. How do you determine who is poor and who is not poor? Where do you find them? How do you compile the register? Okay, excuse me, please. I need 5,000. Will 5,000 help you today?
It's going to get me a lot.
Will 5,000 help you today? I need 5,000. I know what I can do with 5,000. So how come my name is not on the register? How did they shortlist those 10.5 million people? Where did they find them? How did they register them? How do they know that their circumstances are worse than the next man down the road who is not registered on? So what criteria did they use to determine who is vulnerable and who is poor? That is what they're talking about, transparency. Because remember during COVID, when they did conditional cash transfer, when they did trader money, market money, all those things were fraught with allegations of impropriety, allegations of fraud, allegations of bias, that there was no transparency or credibility because they couldn't determine how the beneficiaries were selected. Is it political cronies? Is it, look at the Senate now. What the Senate is going to approve that 800 million, but they will accompany it with a list of their own people. Out of that 10 million people that government wants to give the 5,000 to, many of them will be
beneficiaries,
people that the senators choose. So it won't be the real poor people. It will be the friends of the people in power that get it, which makes nonsense of the whole program to begin with. I mean, so I look at it and I say, I'm not. Then again, think about it. Okay, so they say they're going to give 5,000 for 6 months. After the 6 months, what happens? Are the poor people not back to the same square one? Won't the petrol, cost of transportation and food have gone up? So after 6 months, at the end of 6 months, what happens when they are not getting the 5,000 anymore? Will they not still be exposed to the vulnerabilities of the high prices brought by the subsidy removal? So any which way you look at it, this whole policy just doesn't make sense. This whole notion of this government going to go and borrow this money, encumbering incoming administration and Nigerian people for years to come with this obligation to pay it back, it doesn't make sense. I think they need to review. And if not for the fact that the Senate is a rubber stamp and just does anything President Buhari tells them to do, they should stand up to him and say, no, we don't think this is right. They shouldn't approve it.
So you think the Senate will go ahead to approve it, to approve the loan?
Look at the antecedents of this Senate now. The Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, has always kind of kowtowed to the President. And can you think of anything in the last 8 years that the President has wanted that the Senate said no? Yeah. They don't stand up to him. That's why they've been accused of being a rubber stamp. Whereas the role of the National Assembly is to be a check against excesses of the executive. They're supposed to keep the executive in check. But this Senate has not done very well in that regard. So I suspect they'll pass it.
Well said, Mr. Dayo. The FG said that the program is intended to expand coverage of shock responsive safety net support among the poor and vulnerable Nigerians. Do you think that this is a solution to helping poor and vulnerable Nigerians cope with the rising cost of meeting basic needs in the country?
No, it is not, because what can 5,000 naira buy you today? By the time you walk out of here, between the time you transport from here to the market, transport back home, what you're left with can't even buy you a basket of tomatoes. What is 5,000 naira going to do? I know it sounds a bit highfalutin because we live in the city and we're considered to be elite. So maybe 5,000 naira is nothing to us. But some people will say, by the time you go to rural Nigeria, in the hinterland, 5,000 naira is a lot of money. But truth be told, based on what will happen to the cost of food and commodities after the subsidy is removed, that 5,000 naira won't buy much. So your question, will 5,000 naira turn poor people to millionaires in 6 months? No way. Will 5,000 improve their condition of living in 6 months? No way. There might be one or two who might use the 5,000 and miraculously, through some grace of a divine being, make that 500 naira work for them in a business. Maybe they're grinding pepper.
But the aim is to meet their basic needs.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that 5,000 can't meet basic needs. Not for a family of one, not for a family of three. It can't. In a month. Remember that 5,000 is for a whole month. Yeah, it can't meet your basic needs. So I think it's a waste of time and it should be revisited. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of Nigerians' hard-earned sweat, because it is us who is going to suffer to repay that money in the years to come.
Well, we do hope the Senate does what will be right for Nigerians at the end of the day. Then moving on to the next topic, moving on to our major next story. President-elect Tinubu, who just recently returned to the country after spending some time abroad following his, the announcement of his victory in the presidential elections, has been reported to have traveled to Europe again, this time to fine-tune his transition plans and programs and his policy option with some of his key aides without unnecessary pressures and distractions. He also plans to meet with business leaders and investors. Dayo, what do you think is the attraction of our politicians to foreign countries, especially Europe? You know, the president-elect just got back 2 weeks ago and now he's off again. There's also news that the outgoing President Muhammadu Buhari, has extended his stay in London by 1 week, supposedly to see his dentist. Are there no dentists in Nigeria?
I noticed you laughed, you chuckled when you first started talking about the president-elect went to a foreign country to go and sit down. He doesn't want distractions. Yeah, the question I asked to myself is, don't we have places in Nigeria where there are no distractions, no quiet places? How about Obudukatu Ranch, Whispering Palms on the way to Badagry? We have plenty of resorts where, matter of fact, I'll tell you the truth, he can be in his very house with all the security and DSS he has. All of them can do non-shall pass and nobody can enter his house to see him once he's in a meeting and he doesn't want to see anybody. So I think that's an excuse. I don't think they're telling us the truth. Because if you think about it, he just came back 2 weeks ago. How come during that trip while he was there, he didn't sit down and do the policy meetings and the transition program I needed to do? He could have done it then. So 2 short weeks he's come, 18 days to his inauguration, he's jetting off again. This is what gives currency to the rumor that he has health challenges. You know, they've been talking about that since the days of the campaign, that he's not well. When things like this happen, it allows robust speculation and gossip about the fact that he's going for a medical checkup. Because the excuses they gave us on the surface, they don't ring true. It doesn't add up logically that 2 weeks after you come, you are running off again because you want to go and sit down with your aides. How come you didn't sit down with them while you were there the last time? Why did you come back home to go back again? 18 days to the inauguration. This 18 days is the time when you should knuckle down and be having meetings with people here. He says, he wants to talk to foreign investors and business people overseas. He's not president yet, so he can't enter into any agreements with any foreign investors. Yes, he can tell them his plans, but I think it's more important that he sit down here and address the important people here and sit down with them and formulate his policy plans here, and I think he knows that. So I think that's just an excuse. He probably most likely has a different reason for why he went, which they're not telling us, which I think is troubling. Because remember in President Buhari's first term, for a long time in his first term, he was out of the country for long and there kept being speculation. Remember Jubril from Sudan, when they said they substituted him, that he had actually died, and they substituted him with a look-alike from Sudan and all kinds of things. It's because they were not forthcoming with information. People already knew the president wasn't well, but they were covering it up. And when you cover up instead of being forthright and truthful, it gives room to speculation and gossip that creates all this kind of scenario. So I'm worried that the incoming president is already starting on this same road that President Buhari took the country back in 2015 that caused so much furor and confusion. Now, President Buhari himself, right, he's not out of the woods in this matter. He went to UK for King Charles's coronation. He was supposed to be back this week. All of a sudden, yesterday, we hear from his media advisor that he's extending his stay by 1 week to see his dentist. And I'm glad you chuckled when you said, are there no dentists in Nigeria? That's the question I would ask. But of course, you will see that all along, he has had more faith in overseas doctors than in those here. He's from the beginning of his tenure, he's always gone to his doctors and he says, well, these are the people who've been looking after me for 40 years. Why should I change now because I'm Nigerian president? But look at it. At the end of his tenure, he's still doing the same things he did in the beginning, which is taking time out to attend to his health matters in the UK. So I'm hoping that the incoming president will not follow that road that we went with, because it caused too much tension for people in the country.
And you're even smarter because it sounds familiar. It's something that we've seen before. I would not want to see it in the incoming president. Well said, Mr. Dayo. Moving on to the next story. The APC has zoned the Senate president to the South-South. Senator Godswill Akpabio from Akwa Ibom State, Deputy Senate President to the Northwest, Senator Barau Jibri from Kano State, Speaker of the House of Representatives from the Northwest, Abbas Tajuddin, and the Deputy Speaker, South Southeast from Ben Kalu from Abia State. And now Governor Akeredolu of the APC has described the zoning formula of his party as an unworkable arrangement that reinforces injustice and enhances inequity. Very briefly, Mr. Dyer, what are your thoughts on the APC concerning this issue?
Well, Governor Akeredolu said it all yesterday. The bottom line is this. The Northwest, the country has 6 regions. The Northwestern region has been given zoned the Deputy Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, the Northwest and the North Central have been shut out completely out of those top leadership positions. So they're looking at it and they say, how is this fair? You know, some people say, well, the chairman of the APC is from one of those 2 regions, so at least the APC has got something. But in terms of substantive authority, the top 6 positions from president to vice president to Senate President, Deputy Senate President, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Northeast and North Central, nothing. So they're saying, then of course, you know, there was a clamor for Southeastern presidency, that they've been shut out from the beginning, they've been marginalized, which is part of what is leading to agitations for separation and stuff. So there's one school of thought that says the Southeast should have been given more responsibility, given more opportunity, because they are a part of Nigeria too, and they've not really played a major role in any of the major positions recently. Right. So the Southeast is relegated to number 6, which is Deputy Speaker. So they're looking at it and they're saying the way you've zoned this thing is not shared fairly. That's number 1 problem. Number 2 problem is that many of the National Assembly members-elect are saying the party should not pick for us. Why should the president-elect and the party begin to determine who picks what position? How then will we be independent and be a check on the executive and not be a rubber stamp if the president has handpicked the people he wants? There should be an internal matter that does not concern the president-elect at all. Let the National Assembly be sworn in on the 29th, then we will have our own internal election and choose our own leaders, and then we will swear them in, and they will begin their role as a check and balance on the executive. So the executive should stay out of it. So those are the 2 issues. Many of the members are aggrieved that the party has zoned and has handpicked those they want to sit in those positions. They say that is a rape of democracy. That is an imposition, it's a selection. You can't do that. You can't come and exert executive authority over the legislature. How can you do that? So they're annoyed about that. Then there's also the issue of the way the zoning has been done that is not equitable. So fortunately, they had a meeting yesterday. The chairman of the APC said, we've heard your complaints, we will review this thing. We've heard your complaints. So please, just sheath your swords for now. We will review it and maybe redistribute the positions. However, the president-elect is gone. He's not here.
I'd like to know something. How important is the place of zoning in this matter? Shouldn't the the foremost criteria of choosing the leaders in the National Assembly be based on character, merit, and credibility?
Well, that's the ultimate. That's where we are praying our democracy should go. But at this point in time, in terms of a democracy that is still growing, that's still in primordial stages, is still vestigial, and it's just coming to bloom, you have to factor in both issues. At this point in time, ethnicity, where you come from, religion, who you worship, they matter in Nigeria. They are key to any and everything. So you can't say you ignore it completely for merit, character, competence. Yes, we want only the best people at the helm of our affairs. But if you have a situation where all the people that are running our affairs are from one part of the country, and we say, oh, it's because they are good, they are the ones that can run this. Every other person from other parts of the country are going to feel cheated, feel sidelined, feel marginalized. So here's the belief. In a country of 220 million people, there is no way you will look across the 6 regions and you will not find people of character, competence, and capacity in all 6 regions. So you have to balance the 2. You look at sharing positions, contracts, appointments, ambassadorships, projects. You look at sharing them evenly across the 6 regions. But you also add merit, character, and competence in those you select from those 6 zones. So for now, we can't let one outweigh the other. You can't let merit and competence, you can't do it all and sacrifice ethnicity and religion. Likewise, we shouldn't make ethnicity and religion the only factor and sacrifice competence and character, because at that point then the country won't move forward.
Very insightful. I'm still on the leadership in the National Assembly. In the course of my research, I found out that it is only one woman that is vying for leadership in the House for the Speaker. Yes. So, and we have just 17 women in the National Assembly out of over 420 I think 423 seats in the National Assembly.
Yes.
So how serious is Nigeria on women inclusion in politics? Because I know there was a bill last in the current administration that they were going to create special seats for women just to close the gap between the female and male representation in government.
Well, the system is rigged. It's been rigged against women, against youth, against the disabled. We've been a patriarchal society for long, whereby we're dominated by the alpha male. That notion of the man is all powerful, the man is all strong, which used to be the truth 200-300 years ago, when all we did was farm and we needed muscles and brawn and physical strength to earn a living. But now we are in a knowledge economy, and God does not distribute brains or knowledge based on gender.
Okay.
So women are as equally mentally capable as men, even sometimes more so.
Okay.
So we've come full circle around to a situation now whereby gender has nothing to do with ability to perform. But because we've had entrenched patriarchalism, whereby the system has been set up to promote males and subjugate females, promote males and subjugate youth, promote males, subjugate the disabled. So you find it very difficult for the system to throw up a woman, or for the system, the moment a woman throws in her hat for a elective position, she won't see any support. She'll just look behind her and she will see nothing. It's empty. There's nobody behind her. So I think more and more women should agitate, more should show interest, more should throw their hats into the ring and begin to push this notion that, I mean, we've always said it jokingly that what a man can do, a woman can do as well or better. But let's begin to practice that. And I think eventually we'll begin to see more women. But women they too have to come out of the shell, out of that shell of, my role is in the other room, my role is in the kitchen.
But more women are coming out.
Yes.
The atmosphere is not conducive enough for them.
Well, they need to continue. Nobody's going to give it to them on a platter. Power is not served a la carte, as they say. You have to fight for it, you have to snatch it, you have to grab it. So women need to get involved more. If we've got 17 now, maybe 100 participated, 7 came out. So next time, let 1,000 participate, maybe 170 will come out. All right?
And that is
what's wrong with you throwing your hat in the ring to run for something? You are a very capable, competent lady of character. Why don't you think about that come 2027?
Wow. Okay, I'll think about it. And that's as much as we can take on the show. This is where we must rest it today as we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Dayo. It's been an engaging time. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. I've really enjoyed being in this seat today. Maybe we should permanently switch and I can come. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Nigeria.
Thank you, Nigeria, for being a part of today's program. Join us again next time as we bring to you trenchant analysis of the breaking news that made the headlines today and every other day. My name is Monisola Abosede. Many thanks for watching. Have a great day.